Welcome to Tips for the Transition, where we have deep, meaningful conversations about life. We talk about how significant changes like divorce, grief, and career change can affect us, our family, our relationships, and our work, and how to move beyond them. I'm your host, Maria Tomás-Keegan, certified career and life coach for women, and I'm here to support you through the messy seasons of life so you can answer big questions like who am I now and how do I move on from here? If you're ready to consider new options, be inspired, and meet incredible women who are on this life journey with us, you're in the right place. You'll find something in each episode to give you hope and encourage you to move from panic to powerful, from rocky to resilient, and from upside down to right side up. This is Tips for the Transition. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Tips for the Transition, the Career Roadmap podcast. I'm so happy you're here to join us. I'm Maria Tomás-Keegan, career and life coach for women. And my vision is to create resources that help women navigate career and life challenges with more ease and grace, and to know that they're not alone. So each weekly conversation we have with inspiring women is intended to help women around the world become more confident, resilient, and brave as they face those challenges. So if something strikes a chord during this conversation, please check the below the video, the show description, so that you can see how to connect with my guest and me to continue the conversation. So I know a lot of moms are in the audience today, and like many of my clients, you might be struggling with how to find harmony in your life as you work full time. It can be challenging when you leave your family to go focus on your career. Well, today I am going to introduce you to Jamie Kullman, who started her first business when she was 15, but she didn't find the magic in working for herself until she got pregnant. And Jamie gave herself 9 months to figure it out. And I thought you'd like to hear her story and her tips. Jamie Kullman was named one of the top business coaches to follow in 2022 and hosts one of the top podcasts in the world. Through her company, Aligned with Purpose in Life and Leadership, Jamie is on a mission to help 100,000 people find their purpose, make a living at it, and make it more impactful. She's dedicated to living a lifestyle by design and believes you have a special gift inside of you that's meant to positively impact the lives of others. So we call this episode Moms Aligning with Purpose. And let me introduce you to Jamie. Welcome, Jamie. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. That was such a lovely introduction.
Oh, good. I'm glad you think so. I am so excited. I've been really looking forward to exploring this topic with you because I know there are lots of moms out there who want to live their life with, like you say, by design and not by default. So let's get started. You call your podcast Mom's Freedom Maker. I love the name of that. So let's get a little background and hear about how it started for you.
Of course, yes. And so Mom's Freedom Maker, little teaser, today actually transitioned to Aligned with Purpose in Life and Leadership podcast. So it's very exciting. But Mom's Freedom Maker really started when I didn't know what I wanted to do, but I knew that I wanted to do and be more. Like I felt that call inside of me that what I was doing in terms of selling products online just wasn't feeding my soul. And so I started diving into personal development and really focusing on who I was becoming on the journey. less about the tactics and the strategies and the sales funnels. And that's when everything truly started to shift. And moms started reaching out to me like, how are you going to be able to run a business and stay at home with your baby and have more control of your life? And I started coaching them and sharing my journey of transformation. And that's when I truly was like, all right, this is it. Like, this is what you're supposed to be doing. And that's when, truthfully, through the podcast, I started really finding my voice and stepping into that more confident version of myself and figuring out who that actually was. Because for a long time on my journey, I numbed who I was and I kind of hid behind the computer and used all the other parts of business to just prevent me from showing up where it truly mattered. So that's really where Mom's Freedom Maker was born, and just under the concept of like, you can do and be more. You can choose what you want to do with your life and you don't have to settle. That was the concept there. And now as we transition into aligned with purpose, it's just so aligned with me and where we're at on this journey. So thank you.
Yeah, I can hear the passion behind that. That's great. I loved a question that you posed on your website. I actually used it in your intro. You asked, are you ready to find your purpose, make a living from it, and make it more impactful? So let's talk about how someone listening might go about finding their purpose.
I love this question so much. And it's something that I struggled with for years. And I remember Googling how to combine your skills, passions, and expertise to build a business that you love. And I found nothing. Okay. Nothing at all. So if you're listening to this or you're watching this right now and you're not sure what your purpose is, my challenge for you would be to stop trying to find it and just start doing things that set your soul on fire, right? With no expectation of what that's going to look like, right? So,
Okay. All right. So find things that set your soul on fire. So
yes.
let's talk about that.
Mm,
Let's talk about the process uh, or the activities that someone can do to kind of let that happen.
absolutely. So, I love to call it your zone of impact. Okay. So, when I mentioned that I went to Google and I was trying to figure out how to combine all of these different things, I was like, all right, well, clearly I need to develop a process to figure out what this looks like. So, what I did was I basically would brain dump all of the things that I feel like I'm an expert in or could teach someone, all of the skill sets that I have, and all the things that I'm passionate about. And when I looked at this list, it was not, let's find one thing and just only do that for the rest of our life, like what happens to a lot of people. It was, how do we combine as many of these things as possible and get really good at them, right? Because truthfully, your purpose, especially if you're connecting that up with a business, is an embodiment of you. Like, you are your business. And so it's, how can you become the best version of yourself in these different areas that you love? And that's going to translate into building a business that's completely in alignment with you and what you love. And it's eliminating the other things that are a distraction from that.
I love how you broke that down, because I do this with my clients a lot. My career clients, I suggest that they look at this in three parts. So all of the things you know how to do, all of the things you love to do, that's what lights you up, right? And all the things you don't want to do anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And somewhere in that mix, they find what they really are passionate about. And you're right, it's never just one thing.
Mm-mm. No,
Yeah.
it's not. That's beautiful. I love what you said too about finding what they don't want to do anymore.
Yeah.
Because I feel, especially if we're talking about like business, I feel so often people feel like they have to keep doing the things that they don't enjoy. And it's like, you're really just doing yourself a disservice, because we need to focus on the things that you do love. I mean, look, life is way too short to spend all your time doing the things that kind of drain your energy rather than boost it, right? The
Right.
world needs you to show up as your best version, and you can only do that in that way.
Right. And I know that, some people out there are probably thinking, yeah, but um, I'm working for somebody else, and part of my job really don't like. And I spend a lot of time doing stuff I don't like, and I have to do that because I'm working for somebody else, and that's what they tell me to do. But I'd like to challenge those people to think about how they can, a lot of people want to work for someone else.
Mm-hmm.
Some people need to work for someone else. Not everyone is cut out to be their own boss, their own business owner.
Mm-hmm.
So the challenge is to reframe it and find ways to do it in a different way so that you can enjoy it, or get really creative and work within the organization to find ways to move yourself into something that you do love to do more of, right? So
Absolutely.
there are so many ways to go about that. I'm so glad we're having this conversation.
Yes, me too.
So once they find their purpose, once they, whatever process they use to get at it, once they figure that out, how do they share their gifts then with more people? That's the impactful part, right?
Yes. And it kind of circles, well, so the kind of middle portion in terms of making a living from it, like specifically what I teach is how to build a business around it. Or back to what you said, it's like, how do you take maybe a job that you're not that passionate about and transform it into one that lights your soul on fire? And just imagine your employer, how they will see you show up to the job differently when they can tell that you have some passion and purpose behind the work that you're doing. And so whether you're in a job right now or you're looking to start a business, it's how do we make a living doing something that we love, but in that impact side of things. So once we've got the purpose, once we're making a living from it, it's how do you make it more impactful and outwardly serving to more people? And so for me, that's been my podcast, right? My podcast and the social media that I'm growing, that's how you share your message with more people. And that involves getting out of your comfort zone, sharing stories that may be a little uncomfortable to share with the world, but that's where you truly make the most impact because there's someone out there who needs to hear your story because maybe they're still struggling with it and they don't know how to get to the other side. But if they just heard that you had done it and they see where you are today, that's how you impact lives. And that's how I'll touch 100,000 more people. It's because I'm going to keep showing up and going to keep sharing the journey and helping others really just step into the leadership role that they're meant to have with their one precious life. So the impact is truly just sharing your story.
I love that. And it's so true. I think when people realize that they're not alone in this life, on this journey, that somebody else out there has done what you're doing or about to do, and they've figured it out, tapping into that wisdom
Mm-hmm.
is such a good idea.
Absolutely.
Yeah, such a good idea. So
Mm-hmm.
you talked about telling your story. There's a lot of mess in that, isn't there?
Oh, yeah.
For most of us, right? There's a lot of mess in our stories. We have gone through that roller coaster ride and come out on the other side of it wiser.
Mm-hmm.
And sharing that is a really good idea. So how can someone turn their mess into their message?
Mm. Yeah, I love this. I mean, I think it starts with truly seeing if there's any blocks around you starting to share this. Like, oh, well, what will people think? Will I offend
Mm.
someone? How will I actually share this story? So I think first off is being real with yourself. Am I actually in a position to where I feel good enough to just start sharing this. And if there's a block, if you're worried about what other people are going to think, I just encourage you to remind yourself that this is your story. And assuming that you have the right intentions behind your sharing it, like that would be to help people, to serve, to work them through their struggles right now. As long as you have that intention and not to hurt people, not to slander, not to, just be starting drama, assuming you're on the right path with your intentions, then you should be 100% fine to share your story. I would just encourage you to try to, if it could offend someone, like, don't share names. Don't do it to be like political in some way, shape, or form, right? It's finding a beautiful way to share your perspective and how you grew from an experience, how you turned that failure, that mess into a lesson, and how it's made you who you are today and shifted your mind. That's truly where you can begin to share that mess. And it's just realizing if you have those limiting beliefs, if you have a lack of confidence, it's just, you're going to get better the more you start to share. So just start to speak up. Somebody out there needs to hear it.
Yeah, that's so true. That's so true. Somebody out there, even if it's one person, somebody out there needs to hear it.
Yeah.
And I think there is a lot of power in figuring out how to tell your story based on the lessons you've learned. And you touched on that a moment ago.
Yeah.
So it's, what are the lessons you learned, and how can you convey those so that someone else can learn the lesson from you?
Yeah.
So there's great power in rewriting your story, right? Let's talk about that for a minute.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think rewriting your story is something that, well, it's something that I've been focusing on a daily basis. If I ever hear something start to like come up into my mind that's maybe a limiting belief or going to hold me back from something, I'll journal through what that is. Okay. So it's basically taking something that's not serving you, no matter what that looks like, writing down that negative thought, that limiting belief, and then rewrite its complete opposite. Okay, so why is it a good thing? Why would it serve you? And then just journal through it really fast on what that transition, what that shift would look like in your life. Okay, so that's an easy way to just rewrite your story beginning today. So moving forward, you can start to do this. But in terms of rewriting your story from the past, I believe it's truly finding the lesson in each moment. Like, I've been in a lot of abusive relationships, for example, and like one of which lasted a few years long. And while I can look back and say, oh, well, it was horrible that I allowed that to happen, it was a messy situation, it made me who I am today. It made me stronger as a woman. And it also has a lot to do with the reason I'm an entrepreneur. It was because of a part of that mindset that was ingrained in that really hurtful time in life. And so it's seeing, did that actually make me the person I am today? Because I promise you, friend, you are exactly where you need to be right now. So it's leaning into that. Trust that this journey was for you, not to you.
Yeah, I love that. That's a great message. It's happening for you, not to you. Yeah. And everybody is exactly where they need to be, because quite frankly, there's nowhere else to be, right? There's no choice in that. We are where we are. We got here as a result of our choices, the things that have happened in our lives.
Yeah.
But some things might hold us back. What do you think is the number one thing that might hold us back from starting to rewrite our story, starting to investigate what we are passionate about, and
Yeah.
figuring out how to live with purpose? What might hold us back?
I love this question. And so many things started to come up for me. And then I was like, what do all of these things have in common? Like fear was coming up, judgment was coming up, like lack of confidence, all these things were starting to stack. And then I was like, they're all the ego.
Yeah.
It's all the ego. So truthfully, the one thing that will hold you back from everything that you desire, and it's funny because I just did a podcast episode on this that launched on Monday, and it was literally called The One Thing That Will Hold You Back from Everything You Desire. And it's truly the ego. It's the voice in your head that tells you to sleep in. It's the voice in your head that tells you you're not good enough, or that you should wait to start, or that you should keep playing small. It is that voice that will hold you back from everything that you want. And so it's taking a step back in the moment and saying, okay, is this my true self coming through? Or is it the ego trying to keep me exactly where I am today in my comfort zone? Granted, the ego is trying to keep you safe, right? It's been in us since, since we became humans as a species, but it has the power to prevent you from actually following your dreams and doing what you want to do. And so it's finding a way to make that other voice inside of you stronger and strong enough to more become the person that you need to be in order to shut that ego down.
Okay, so we all know how powerful the ego can
Oof.
be, right?
Yes.
How do we overcome that? What are your thoughts about that?
Yeah, I mean, for me, a lot of it has been journaling. Like we just talked about, like, how do we rewrite these stories? And if you catch yourself like, oh, I'm afraid of failure, I'm afraid of success, am I good enough? Can I actually do this? Anytime you feel those beliefs start to creep in, it's recognizing it for what it is, being the ego, right? And then it's journaling through why that's not true, why you actually do deserve this, why you should pursue this. So it's really just learning how to tell the ego to, like, thank you. If we got the ego right here, thank you, ego. Like, or thanks, Jamie. I appreciate you for trying to keep me safe, but step aside because I'm coming through and I've got things to do. So kindly get out of my way.
Yeah, well, yeah. So having that conversation is a great way to do it. I mean, it truly is a great way to
Yeah.
do it, to just talk to yourself. That's what you're doing, right? And I love the question you posed because it's one of the most powerful questions, and that is it true? So if you hear
Mm.
that voice in your head that says, I'm not good enough, I'm not worthy of that, I'm not capable, whatever it is, the question you can ask is that really true? And answer it honestly, stepping into really who you are and not so much listening to that ego voice that can be really loud.
And I would love to add something here in terms of like who you are today. Like, if you have this vision, this dream, like this vision board, so to speak, like the person who's achieved those things is different than the person who you are today, but you still have that version of you inside. So I encourage you when you're asking yourself these questions, it's like show up from the version of you that you're striving to become today. That's how you truly start to make decisions that are going to put you on the path that's aligned with your purpose.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Who do you want to become?
Mm-hmm.
Mm, yeah. And what do you want to have? And what do you want to do? Those are all great questions.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So, Jamie, we end every episode with a section where my guest brings practical tips and techniques to the audience. It's why we call the show Tips for the Transition. So, share with us your first tip.
Mm. This is something that would have saved me years and years of trial and error and frustration, especially as an entrepreneur. My number one tip for you is to stop focusing and getting hung up on the how. Just stop. Stop. Focus on who you're becoming on this journey. Focus on yourself. And I promise you, the how will come, it will reveal itself to you.
You know that is probably the hardest thing for we humans to do.
Mm-hmm.
It really is.
Yeah.
It's really hard to say, this is what I want to do, but how? How am I going to make that happen? And
Mm-hmm.
not focus on that. It's human nature to do it. But Jamie raises an excellent point here. If you can just say, this is what I want,
Mhm.
and then be open to allow it to happen, that's when the magic really does happen. And I know it's hard to believe sometimes. So that's a great first tip. Great first tip. Probably the hardest thing. And that's why it
Yeah.
took you years. It took me years too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. What's your second tip?
Oof. It has to follow that one up as don't do it alone. Like there are way too many people out there who have figured it out. Like I know this is also human nature as well. Like, oh, we're going to do it on our own. We're going to run to YouTube. We're going to figure it
Mm,
out. But just jump in the time machine and let somebody else guide you on this journey to just save you. If our most valuable asset is time, save time and just learn from somebody who's gone through it before because it is
right.
a journey. I will tell you that.
Oh yeah. It is absolutely a journey.
Yeah.
And I've not reached my destination. Have you?
Oof, I never will.
And we never will. Right. And if we recognize that, if we accept that it
Mhm.
is a journey and that we can learn from others who've been there before us, then it makes it so much easier. Great
Yeah.
second tip too. Okay.
Mm.
So, third one.
Mm.
Mm,
So we've got tip number 1,
yeah.
focusing on who you become. We've got tip number 2, learn from someone else that's ahead of you. And I would say tip number 3 is get out of your own way.
Mm,
Figure out ways to truly quiet down that ego so that your true self can break through and you can step fully into your power. Like that has to be the third one for me.
yeah.
Yeah.
Another one that's not easy to do, step out of our
Mm.
own way. I often ask my clients, what's your biggest obstacle? And the first thing that comes out of their mouth is me.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that's the case with practically everyone.
Yeah.
And if we can figure out how to, as you put it, step out of our own way and allow people to help us, allow things to happen, allow new connections to be made on our behalf, allow, then I
Mhm.
think we serve ourselves better and it's less frustrating. It's easier.
Absolutely. Truly is.
Jamie, this has been a great episode. I really appreciate your being here and talking to the moms in our and everyone, but especially the moms who struggle with this idea of finding harmony and balance um, and purpose in our lives, so that what we do every single day, whether we're working for someone else or for ourselves, whether we are on the fence between those two things, wherever we are, it's really important. The tips that Jamie has shared, I think, are really important for us all to embrace. So,
Absolutely.
Jamie, thank you so much for being here. I know that our audience is going to want to reach out and talk to you. So, what's the best way for them to do that? I'm going to put up your LinkedIn profile is what you shared with me.
Mhm.
So, if you'd like to speak that to
Great.
the audience so they can reach out to you.
Perfect. Yeah, so I'm on LinkedIn and Facebook. You can find me at Jamie Kullman, JamieKullman, or over on Instagram, Coach with Jamie. Or to anybody who leaves a rating and review on this show and sends an email over with a screenshot, they could head over to coachwithjamie.com and they will get an hour-long breakthrough session with me where we can truly work together to figure out what your purpose is and create a roadmap to following that through.
Wow, great. That's a beautiful gift. Thank you so much for that. I
Absolutely.
really appreciate, Jamie, you being here and sharing your gifts with our audience.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been an honor.
It is my pleasure. And thank you to everyone who has joined us for watching and listening. I really appreciate that you're part of this community. And as I said at the top of the show, I create and share resources for women. So if any part of this conversation struck a chord with you, take a look at the show notes and look for all of the ways to connect with Jamie and me, and we will be able to continue this conversation. And if you'd like to do that on my private Facebook group called the Career Transition Roadmap, that link is below as well. I believe it's our time to thrive. So let's do that together. I'm Maria Tomás-Keegan. Till next time, turning transition into triumph.